Coming up on Network Africa. 9 Nigerians run for office in the US general elections. Côte d'Ivoire's President Alassane Ouattara wins a controversial third term in office. Plus, Ugandan opposition figure Bobby Wine cleared by the Electoral Commission to run for president. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shoboale. Americans have begun voting in one of the most divisive presidential elections in decades, pitting incumbent Republican Donald Trump against his Democratic challenger Joe Biden. In this next report, we'll take a look at US-Africa relations under the Trump administration and what the relationship might be like in the next 4 years.
And if I don't sound like a typical Washington politician, it's because, thank you, I'm not a politician, thank you very much. If I don't always play by the rules of Washington and the Washington establishment, it's because I was elected to fight for you, and I fight for you harder than anyone has ever fought for you before.
With those words, US President Donald Trump makes a final pitch for re-election, few hours before polls open to millions of Americans who desire to participate in the process of choosing the country's next president. Based on the United States' status as a global power, its elections matter to the rest of the world. But for President Donald Trump, it's America first in terms of the country's foreign policy. This has led to the United States stepping away from some large multilateral agreements like the Paris Climate Accord or pulling back from some multilateral organizations like the World Health Organization. The president has also promised to curb immigration levels, saying it will eliminate the visa lottery and chain migration. So what impact will another 4 years of the Trump administration have on its relationship with Africa?
Don't forget that even when Donald Trump came in, 4 years ago, part of his statements that he made, which really rankled the Africans generally, was that Africa is made up of, in quote, shithole countries, and that, in fact, he was going to ban immigration from Africa, from Latin America, from Asia, from all these countries, so-called friendly countries, but which he termed to be like a parasite on America generally. So it has not been a good experience under President Trump's administration for Africa.
Meanwhile, Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden says Wednesday's election is a battle for the soul of America.
We've been through a lot in this country since we announced. America's facing a confluence of crises unlike anything in living memory. We're still in the battle for the soul of America.
According to Brian McKeon, a Biden foreign policy advisor, if the Democrat wins the election, on his first day in office, he will get on the phone to key allies and say that America is back and America has your back.
Any government, its job is to put the interest of its country and its people first. But I think it's in the manner in which you do it. When you look at some of the immigration policies under the Trump administration, were not favorable to Africans. And in fact, when you look at the COVID-19 pandemic, from I believe from March up until June 20th, hundreds of folks were deported, were repatriated to various African countries in the midst of a global health pandemic, which some experts said the American government was exporting the virus to the African continent, a continent that has had much greater success
For now, the whole world is watching and waiting to know who will emerge winner. Until then, people can only speculate on what America's foreign policy towards Africa will be like over the next 4 years.
Meanwhile, despite President Trump's America First policy, hundreds of men and women in Onitsha in eastern Nigeria have held a rally in support of the U.S. president. Earlier this year, a Pew Research Center poll in January found that 58% of Nigerians had confidence in President Trump, behind only Israel, the Philippines, and Kenya. A 2020 Gallup poll also showed 56% of Nigerians approved of U.S. leadership versus 24% for Europeans.
If we have a person like Trump, 10 of him, those people that have the good leadership qualities like Trump in Nigeria, Nigeria will be a better place to stay. There will be no need of going outside the country to go and begin to look for greener pastures, going to search for work. I mean, he's a good leader.
Trump's message to Africa, to Nigeria, is they stop killing Christians. And no other president talk, it's only him give the message. So you make the Christians, you give the Christians hope here.
It's founded on God Almighty. By the
Well, still on the U.S. elections, at least 9 Nigerian Americans are also in the race at the federal, state and local levels. Oye Owulewa from Kwara State, who holds a Doctor of Philosophy degree in pharmacy from the Northeastern University, Boston, is contesting on the platform of the Democratic Party to represent the District of Columbia. Esther Baje, a 35-year-old daughter of a priest and librarian, both Nigerian immigrants, is seeking to represent District 59B in the Minnesota House of Representatives on the platform of the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party, an affiliate of the U.S. Democratic Party. Yomi Faparusi, an Ibadan-born native of Ade-Ekiti in Ekiti State, is seeking election as an independent candidate to represent the state of Tennessee in the Congress. Yinka Faleti, born in Lagos, migrated to the United States at the age of 7, is the Democratic Party nominee for Missouri Secretary of State. Paul Akinjo from Ondo State is running for election to the California State Assembly under the Democratic Party to represent District 12. Adewumi Kuforiji from Oyo State is vying to represent District 34 in the Delaware House of Representatives. He holds a degree in accounting and a master's in business administration from the Delaware State University. Meanwhile, April Ademului, Ngozi Akubuike and Benjamin Osemenam will all be contesting at the local government level, respectively. Ademului is running on the Democratic Party's ticket for judge of the 7th Circuit Court in Prince George's County, Maryland. Akubuike, a legal practitioner, is an independent candidate for judge of the Minnesota 2nd District Court, position 8. Osemenam is contesting for a seat in the Brooklyn Park City Council of Minnesota to represent East District, is vying on the platform of the National Party. Let's get more on the U.S. election from our Washington, D.C. correspondent, Maria Bird. Maria, what's the mood like in the country at the moment?
Well, I must tell you, I am out here at a polling station, and it is very desolate. This is the first time I've seen it where you literally have no lines. You can kind of see behind me here where there's just a few cars in the lot, a few cars going down the street. You see a few signs, but it is a very different day than what we've seen in years past.
Well, you know, all eyes are on the U.S. elections due to the U.S. status as a superpower. What's really to blame for, you're saying that there isn't a lot of people coming out today. What's really to blame for that? Is it early in the day, or is it because of the large voter turnout we saw in the run-up to today?
It's really due to the early voting. I will say some of the larger super centers probably are more packed, but many of your local polling stations that traditionally have long lines don't have the kind of lines because people have gone out early. And many people are a little concerned about what could happen today. So you see people staying in, not going places. Schools are closed today. Many businesses are closed today. You'll see businesses actually boarding up many of their facilities just in case there's any civil unrest that occurs.
Okay, let's, everyone is eagerly awaiting for the results to be announced. Give us an idea of what both presidential candidates' foreign policy will be like.
Well, we're going to probably see that it'll be very different. President Trump will probably continue to have a very strong, forceful hand. He'll probably continue to try to build with North Korea, obviously Russia. He probably will not go back into many of the treaties that the U.S. has typically been a part of. We probably will see many of our European allies to not be as friendly as they've been in the past to us. On the other hand, Joe Biden will probably continue to try to rectify many of those relationships. I heard you all talk about earlier some of what President Trump said early on about Africa. I can tell you that President Biden is going to definitely work to amend some of those challenges that existed. He's going to work with Europe and try to amend some of the issues that have existed with France and the UK. And so I think that we're going to see much more of the crossing over if Joe Biden wins the election.
And Maria, just before I let you go, it's not only the presidential election that's taken place. Governorship polls in other states and local elections are also taking place. Tell us a bit more about that, especially as it affects the African-American community.
Well, those are very important because your local leaders are the ones that oftentimes make the regulations where you live. And so those elected people are telling you, vote down. Look at those other candidates. Know what they represent. Don't just check a box or don't not check anything because they impact the judgeship. They impact many of the local and state laws. And so those elections are going to be key as well. We also know that we're looking at many Senate races. And the Senate races are key and critical as we look at how laws are passed. We look at, justice reform issues. We look at racial inequality issues. We look at all the issues around policing. It's going to be imperative that there is a Congress in place that will support those type of laws and legislation.
All right, then, Maria, it's going to be a very long day for you today. Thank you so much for speaking to us on Network Africa. And stay safe. Moving away from the U.S. presidential elections now, 7 out of the 8 NSAS Nigerians who protested in Egypt on October 18 will be deported to Nigeria for lack of resident permits and visas. That's according to Chairman CEO, Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Abike Dabiri-Erawa, who has been following the matter. In a statement, Mrs. Dabiri-Erawa said the only Nigerian among them who has residency permit will get final clearance from the Egyptian Interior Minister after signing an undertaking not to be involved in any unauthorized activities while still in the country. She explained that the Nigerian mission in Egypt is still pleading for leniency on behalf of the 7 Nigerians slated for deportation. Mrs. Dabiri-Erawa, however, denied the allegation that the federal government of Nigeria is involved in the arrest of the protesters. Côte d'Ivoire's President Alassane Ouattara has won a controversial third term in office in an election boycotted by the opposition. He took 94% of the vote, even winning 99% in some of his strongholds. However, turnout was put at almost 54%, and the result has to be confirmed by the Constitutional Council. On Monday, the Ivorian opposition said it was creating a transitional government which would organize a new election. This comes after main opposition candidate Pascal Affi-N'Guessan and Henri Conan-Bédier had urged their supporters not to vote. Over in East Africa, Ugandan opposition figure Robert Kyagulanyi, also known as Bobby Wine, has been cleared by the Electoral Commission to start official campaigns for the presidency. He will face off against 9 other contenders, including incumbent President Yoweri Museveni, who has ruled the country since 1986. In a tweet, Bobby Wine told its supporters that they have now entered the most critical phase of the country's liberation struggle. Police had earlier fired tear gas to disperse his supporters who turned up to show support in the capital, Kampala. Still to come on the program. 7 people killed in mass shooting in South Africa. Details in a moment. Stay with us. Staying with us, 2 security matters. French forces have killed over 50 jihadists in airstrikes in central Mali. The French Defense Minister, Florence Parly, who is in Mali, says the Al-Qaeda-affiliated militants were killed on Friday near the borders with Burkina Faso and Niger. She adds that weapons and other equipment had been seized. Ms. Parly also says that France will continue to support Mali's army in its efforts against the jihadists who operate across the Sahel. Over 5,000 French troops are stationed in the region, but they have been unable to contain the militants. The vast semi-desert region is also affected by ethnic violence, human and drug trafficking, and banditry. The Chief Inspector of Zambia, Doreen Malambo, who is currently serving in the UN mission in South Sudan, has been named the 2020 United Nations Women Police Officer of the Year by the UN Department of Peace Operations. She will receive the award virtually at a ceremony scheduled to be held on Tuesday. Chief Inspector Malambo currently serves as a gender advisor in Juba, South Sudan, where she was first deployed in 2016, a year marked with widespread violence in the country.
If me as a police officer who is in uniform, I tremble, I show fear, then there will be no hope for these South Sudanese women. So I started advising them, encouraging them, telling them that it will all go. For them, they were saying their husbands were in the bush fighting, and some of the women were even used as conveyor belts to take the ammunitions, to take the food to the people who were fighting. Then I started giving them some experience which I gained from Liberia and how the Liberian women managed to bring peace in their own country. It wasn't really the men, but it was the women who fought for the peace in Liberia. I got married at a certain point and had 3 children. I divorced because the man was abusing me. That's what prompted me to even be a mouthpiece for other women to fight this violence, because it is not good at all. I faced it and I stood firm, stand up and support each other. Together we can make it.
Police in the South African city of Cape Town are investigating the killing of 7 people in a shooting in the Gugulethu area. Police say gunmen entered a house in the area and shot randomly, killing 3 women and 4 men. 2 other people were injured and hospitalized with gunshot wounds. Police are searching through the scene for clues on what may have happened. The area, as in the past, had killings involving rival businesses. Let's get more on this story from our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia. Betty, what's the latest with this tragic story?
Well, the story hasn't moved any further for now. The police is still investigating and they're saying the details are sketchy. No one really knows because no one has been apprehended. But you have to understand that what goes on in the Cape Flats area, like many other areas where you have a number of townships, there's a lot of gun crime, violent crimes, the gangsters are there. So it may be a bit difficult. And some of the eyewitnesses, the way they've described it, 2 men were in a car, they shot in the air before they got into this building, which has been known allegedly for some illicit movements, and I know it's a socializing setting because some people were drinking in the place, and then they shot and ran off in minutes. Someone who witnessed, who saw the men actually. So investigations are still going on. We haven't heard much officially from the police in terms of movement or new developments on the case, but we understand that the police is investigating.
So we understand that, there's been several killings in the area. And like you mentioned, gun crimes are quite high in the area. What are the security forces doing to, prevent a reoccurrence?
The security forces can only try. Remember, it got so bad in the area called Cape Flats. It's just a flat expanse of land. It's not just a block of flats, as many people usually misunderstand. So you have a number of townships like Uguletu, Kailicha, Joslovo, Nyanga, and a number of them. The police is not left out in the killings as well, as victims. So if you recall last year, there was an operation with the soldiers, deployment of soldiers and the police, called Operation Lockdown. That tried, the killings didn't stop. And I think that fizzled. Of course, COVID took over, where the bulk of the forces were deployed to monitor and enforce the lockdown. That's the COVID lockdown now. But the first Operation Lockdown was for all these killings, the gang violence in the area called Cape Flats. In the past six weeks, you've had 3 mass shootings. You've had 10 people shot in an area called Kailicha, where 7 or 6 people died and 4 people were injured. Joslovo, 5 people killed, and then in Guguletu, 7. Guguletu in June, you had about 3 people. This happens every other day, and people are really worried. They say the police is failing. The police is handicapped as well, because you need local intelligence. Are people cooperating enough with the forces? That's another question. So it's a problem where you need the community to support the police, as the police is trying to do what it's trying to do. But the gang-related violence in the area is quite high. And there's this issue, one of the councillors who was condemning what happened was saying there's the issue of extortion and racketeering, where the gangs go to some of the businesses, especially the ones owned by foreign nationals, to say you need to pay protection money. So we protect you from every other people, but you must pay. Maybe we don't know if that's the case in this case, where probably somebody failed to pay and then gunmen were sent. We don't know, so I can't really say the cause of this particular incident. But the gun violence is quite high in the country generally, and in these areas. The Cape Flats is a different kettle of fish.
All right, then, Betty, we do hope for, a speedy solution so South Africans can, of course, feel safe. Thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa, and do stay safe yourself.
You too. Thank you so much.
Former Sudanese Prime Minister Sadiq Al-Mahdi has been transferred to the United Arab Emirates for treatment after contracting the coronavirus. In a statement, the National Ummah Party said its leader was being treated in Sudan before a decision was made to take him abroad. Some 21 members of the Al-Mahdi family have also contracted the virus, but they are all said to be in stable condition. Wishing him a speedy recovery. And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Teniola Shoboale. Bye for now.